that it's a
Afternoon.
relatively smaller company. Talk to us about some of those financials. A goal of 5,000 trucks and buses in the next 3 years. How do we get there?
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here, and good afternoon to you. Yeah. So Hyzon Motors is the realization of a 17-year journey, actually, for our chairman, George Gu, and myself, through the parent company's activities, Hyzon Fuel Cell. So while Hyzon Motors is a new entity, it's been set up to accelerate the energy transition through commercial mobility. It comes out of a fairly long pedigree of core PEM fuel cell technology. So it's a global business right from the outset because of the long history in the core technology.
And with that, what are the revenue numbers behind a path to 5,000?
So we're looking at a gradual path to multi-billion-dollar vehicle deployment revenues. Clearly, we have to. While we think big, we always start small, and that's been kind of our guiding motto through our whole history with the core PEM fuel cell technology. So we're expecting to grow this business significantly, which is why we need strong partners such as Total on hydrogen infrastructure, because this will be a global market with big scale and global reach.
Let's talk about those partners. Total is a great first investment, another additional great investment. What about big carriers? Has anyone else approached you as you think about the commercialization of this?
So we're obviously engaged in a number of commercial discussions with major corporations around the world, and we want to be part of their decarbonisation journey. We believe that hydrogen's the only option to get very high utilisation commercial vehicles off diesel and onto zero emission platforms. Therefore, we're talking to government agencies and major corporations, all with a growing decarbonisation imperative.
Talk to us about, I'm trying to get into and understand more of the business model here. You've mentioned that you might outsource the building of the trucks. Who would that be? And is that part of then how you would directly sell or lease these trucks?
Yes. So we concentrate on the core hydrogen system and PEM fuel cell powertrains, if you like, and we outsource non-core activities like building chassis and sourcing electric motors and that sort of thing. This gives us a reasonably asset-light business model, and we can depend on really good quality vendors to help us put together those capabilities. So we can actually work with a number of different partners because we have the core fuel cell powertrain technology. This can be leveraged in many applications for mobility, anything from heavy trucks to port equipment to trains and so on. So we can actually work with a lot of different incumbent players in these different segments.
Can you give us some names of who you're in talks with?
Look, a lot of discussions are commercial in confidence, obviously, and it's because it's relatively early days. I think I'd rather wait until we have, when we can showcase the actual vehicles on the road before we talk about names.
I understand, I had to try. Talk to me more in this moment. There's been so much focus on companies like Nikola, for example. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you get your message out there? And I'm thinking really if this all comes down to intellectual property and maintaining that as your goal.
Absolutely. So it's a good question about intellectual property being at the heart of this business, because in our view, the fuel cell is the core technology within a zero emission heavy mobility system, and this is at the core of our business. So in fact, we believe we've got the core technology to differentiate our vehicles. Even where we've outsourced the non-core components, we can differentiate through the core technology. So our focus is squarely been on laying the foundations of the core technology through the parent company's journey over 17 years. And so we've built up a very strong portfolio of IP in the core tech. And as you rightly say, this is at the heart of a successful business model around fuel cell commercial vehicles in the future.
How are you thinking about the future of this business? If it's longer range, how do you get there? Or if it's inner city, how do you get cities to pay up for this kind of technology?
It's a great question about paying up, because so Taylor, in the beginning, to get started, you need some early adopters maybe willing to pay a little bit more to start the journey. But frankly, within the next few years, we expect to see total cost of ownership for hydrogen powered buses in urban areas, like you mentioned, as well as heavy trucks. Within the next few years, we expect those total cost of ownership numbers will match diesel fleets. And this comes about through ongoing innovation and cost down curves in the core technology and the vehicles, but also increased investment in hydrogen and increased availability of hydrogen. So that's a very important consideration in the total cost of ownership, is the cost of hydrogen as a fuel.